Excellent. Okay, welcome to Black Belt Interviews. This is Master David Hodson, and I'm joined this morning by Grandmaster Paul Cutler, Knight's degree, from Lisbon, Northern Ireland. Welcome, sir. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me. It's a great privilege for me. Very excited to have our conversation together and share it with the wider Taekwondo world and find out from someone that's been doing it a very long time. And in fact was the first person promoted to Knight's degree in the UK.
Yes.
Have I got that right, sir?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I was first promoted by Grandmaster Rhee to 9th degree. There'll be others that claim they were promoted. I don't know dates when they were. There should have been people who were senior to me
Sure.
that should have promoted, but the way the system went and people parted company, then it didn't happen.
Right.
Some claim General Choi promoted them and things like that, but whether they did or not, I don't know. I mean, but I was first promoted by Grandmaster Rhee Ha, and he was the first one promoted by General Choi.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah.
So much to speak about, but maybe we could start at the beginning. Is that okay? In Oxford?
It's always a good place to start, yeah. It was 1973, and I wasn't looking for a martial art. I wasn't looking for Taekwondo. I didn't know the name Taekwondo. I was interested in the mystique, if you like. And it's like when I was at school, I had no interest in school really. But the only time I was interested, I got good marks in history because they were talking about Egypt and,
right.
and the Egyptians and Egyptology, and they talked of, and we went on to another day and another program which was about the Incas, and I was fascinated by that. So that side of things fascinated me, So I was always looking at things that had mystique, and there was mystique around martial arts. I mean, people talk about the Bruce Lee movies and that. I wasn't involved in seeing them. I didn't know. Wasn't a movie goer. I didn't know about the movies and that. It was just what I sort of looked for myself and tried to find out about. And
Yeah.
And one day I worked nights at the time for British Leyland in the car factory there, Austin Morris or whatever it was called, BMC. Yeah. It changed its name so many times around that time. It's difficult to remember where I was, but I never changed. I never moved buildings, but I still work for different companies. And motorbiking was my main pleasure pastime. And I went to work on a bike, and I had a bit of trouble with my motorbike on one particular day. And I talked to a friend who was an engineer there, they were called millwrights, and I said, I need to fix my bike, blah, blah, blah. I want to take it in somewhere. What do you reckon? Or can I borrow some lights? He said, I'll take it in to the place where they look after the forklifts, the battery shed. The guy in there, I'll help you. So anyway, I wandered through the building, opened the door and went in, and he's chopping a brick.
Oh, wow. Really?
I went, oh, karate. He just went, sort of, yeah, chat, and we chatted, and then I had the interest. So he invited me along to his club, and so I went along, and I spoke to the instructor. It was probably about a week later. I spoke to the instructor, and he said the right things. So I joined, and I got hooked, and that was it. It became Taekwondo.
Yeah.
But really, it could have been absolutely anything.
Right.
And if the instructor didn't say the right things for me to hear, I might not have been interested. I don't know.
Yeah.
But then my path of what I wanted to do sort of changed, and it became, I found out about Taekwondo.
So how old were you, sir, around at this time?
25 maybe. Yeah. So I wasn't young. A bit soon for middle-age crisis, I suppose, but
Yeah.
that was it. It was something, and because of what it offered me, I got hooked on it.
Yeah,
simple as that. There was so much you could learn at home, and you could do your own practice once you learn something, you go and practice it and have it corrected in class, you know. And it, you know, and that's where it took off. Because I worked nights, it was difficult to attend training all the time, because I think it was Monday, Thursday, Sunday. I could always attend Sunday, Sunday evening. Monday and Thursday, because it started at, like, I think it started at 7. It might have been 6:30. It's a long time ago. But I often had to leave before the end of class, or the class just finished, and had to race off to work.
Right.
I had somebody to clock me in, so I wasn't missed, you know, sort of thing. But you know, but that sort of thing went on, and then a club opened within the social club of the factory for night workers.
Oh, wow.
So we started earlier, and so I moved. It wasn't I didn't like the instructor or anything. It was just it was more handy. So I moved classes. We're still all working together, you know, and that was it. So I moved and was working then in what was Press Steel Social Club, so Press Steel Taekwondo Club.
Wow.
And I was probably maybe green tags or something like that at that time.
Yeah.
You know, and it sort of like carried on, and that was it. So
was it popular? Was it popular with the workers?
It was, yeah, I mean, you've got to remember, publicity-wise, advertising wasn't like it is now. I mean, you can put something on social media and you can choose who you want to see. You can virtually name anybody in the world who you want to see your thing. If you want to pay Facebook's price, I suppose, you know, you can target anybody. But back then there wasn't. I mean, you had newspapers, maybe, if you wanted to spend, or there was posters on notice boards. And that's basically then, once it started within the club, you know, the social club of the factory, that's when it was put up. I mean, there was other clubs, but clubs weren't advertised at all. I never heard about it in Oxford, because it was, you know, times were changing then, but Oxford was run by the university, and you didn't do anything which wasn't allowed by the university as such. So, you know, I mean, go back to history before that, before Taekwondo, they wanted an ice ring in Oxford, and the university said no. So it went to, I think it went to Reading, maybe. They wanted something else that went to Swindon. They wouldn't have it in Oxford, but now they do. Now they had it because it's changed. And the same with, you know, that there wasn't the advertising, there wasn't the clubs in the street. But once you started, you found those little pockets here and there. There was other social clubs attached to working men's clubs or factories, particularly the Leyland group, because you had where I worked, which was Press Steel, then you had Morris's, which was a bit further down the road, and then Radiators, which did the chroming plant for Austin Morris, and they all had their clubs, you found afterwards, you know, where we got together. But, you know, it wasn't advertised and find out about it. It was all word of mouth. Somebody told you. And that's how I found out. By accident, somebody told me about it.
That's it. And it's just that opportunity, isn't it? Like you said, and first the right thing, and you managed to see the brick break first time. And it all culminated in starting. I mean, it must have been quite a different culture to what people were used to, fairly much. Would you think?
It was. I say it was harder. It was a different taekwondo, if you like, to what they do now. There was no safety gear. There wasn't anything like that. You learned to block. You had to block. If you didn't block, you got hurt. I think before green belt, I got a spin back kick from somebody, from a black belt. He was on your first or second dan. You know, hurt, breathe, keep going. Don't admit you're hurt, as we do. You know, but I had a couple of cracked ribs. I went into the works hospital, and they went, yeah, we can, you know, wrap you up, but we can't do anything for it. Just put up with it. Here's a couple of painkillers, get back to your station. You know, that was it. And you just carried on. You know, that's how it was. So for a few weeks, I was a little bit uncomfortable. But yeah, you know, you learn that they hit harder in them days. That's how it was. You know, controlled sparring, non-contact sparring, whatever you want to call it, was always touch, and there was no safety gear. Training was different, because you know, you learn to stance. So I think my first class, I was basically in sitting stance for the best part of an hour. learning to do sitting stance and punch. Could do the punch, and I could do the other hand punch, and then I could do both hands together, you know, work it and get the balance, you know, and that was basically the first couple of classes.
Right, yeah.
Then you do walking stance, learn to move, and so on. It was a completely different pace now.
Yeah.
We weren't supposed to spar. Sparring was when the instructor wasn't there. Because I mean, I can remember Grandmaster Rhee or Master Rhee, he might have even been Mr. Rhee at the time, when it was that sparring was for black belts.
Okay.
In something he said, you know, when they wanted to drop the sparring category to blue belt, because it was allowed at red belt at one stage, to blue belt, he said, but they haven't learnt enough.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and then a couple of years later, they're introducing it to yellow belts and white belts, you know, and he still says, what have they learned?
Yeah.
You know, my grandmother can punch. She doesn't have to learn Taekwondo to do a punch. And if she hits you, it will hurt. You know, that's it. But if you want to learn to do Taekwondo, the Taekwondo way of punching, the Taekwondo movement, the way we move, that is what is different.
Yeah, very much.
And that's the understanding. I mean, we learn to use our bodies. Whereas I see a lot of things today is they use their arms and they use their legs.
Yeah.
They're disconnected from the rest of their body.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about there. So yeah.
Yeah. I try, and that's what I try to put into people when I do workshops with them online with things, you know, that is where we focus, you know, and explain to them what's missing, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So progress was slower there, like you said, and the classes were more the single things to do in an evening rather than many things to do.
Yeah, yeah.
But that built a different kind of foundation for you, would you say?
I think it did. I mean, gradings, for instance, were every 3 months. And below green belt, you could grade any 3 months. Once you were blue belt, so up to blue belt, you could grade every 3 months.
Okay.
Once you're blue belt, the gradings were still 3 months apart, but your time had to go to 6 months.
Yeah.
Because you was a month short when it comes to the 3-monthly grading. Mm-hmm. So blue through to black tag was 6 months, and almost a year from black tag to black belt, because of, you know, what was done. So it was slower. It was, on average, I'd say it was probably 4 to 5 years. If you were pushing, you know, you couldn't do it. The General Choi's time scale says 3 years, or break it down into hours, you know, whatever it is, 586 hours or something on training 3 nights a week, an hour and a half a night, you know, you do that 2 hours twice a week is close to it, you know, so his average was 3 hours, but you have to be in a full-time dojang where you can grade when your time is up if the instructor is able to grade you. But in them days, there was one grading examiner. It was, you know, Rhee Ha, Mr. Master, and then later Grandmaster, you know, as he moved on. But he came around every 3 months. And there was no other alternative. That's how it was.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, but yeah.
Yeah, no, fantastic. I mean, when did you first meet first Grandmaster?
Well, that would have been my first grading probably, which would have probably been, I started in September, which was probably in the early part then of 74, it would have been. You know, it was quite an experience. We were in a where was that grading? I think it was still we were at Cowley Barracks. It was the old military establishment, and it was a great gym.
Yeah.
Open windows, snow used to come in, the wind used to come in, you know, it was great. And they'd take you out on the field, running around the field when the snow was on the floor, barefoot, you know, all that. Health and safety was fantastic in them days. But no, it was one of them, and I just write, it was difficult because I was a student lined up and you're waiting. And I felt his presence before I saw him.
Right.
If you know what I mean. And it was quite awesome. He wasn't like you were expecting. He wasn't like what I saw. You know, what you saw him, his spirit that you felt. I don't know how many other people felt it, but it was different.
Yeah, no, I've heard this before.
Um,
In those days.
my image was something like a 7-foot high samurai in full gear, had walked in the room, and then I saw him, and he was much smaller, but he isn't small. I mean, he's still, we were always around the same weight. We got the same size shoes. I'm a couple of inches taller than him. For a Korean, he was a giant.
Yeah.
I mean, there are other tall Koreans or whatever. He was a giant, and that was it. But I felt his presence really much so, and it was, there was will you please and thank yous. And no please and thank yous involved in Taekwondo in them ways. You did it or you didn't do it.
Yeah.
It was strict bow and get on with it. Tell you to do it, you do it.
Yeah.
If you said no, you went home. That was it.
Yeah.
You were asked to break, but you were told to break. You will spar or you don't spar. If you didn't pass, and that was it. You had to partake in everything for it to happen. For your grading to happen. But it was a great experience. I mean, I never met him. I was a 3 foot away closest at the table when it was asked the questions and that, and he didn't look up from the table. He was there. What does Taekwondo mean? That's it. Didn't no eye contact, nothing. You walked up and bow, and he nods his head, which is it. He acknowledges, and that's it. His eyes would come up and he'd look, but he'd be down talking. It wasn't sit up and talk and explain.
Oh, yeah.
It was down, focused, mark the card, move them over, and dismiss. That was it. You bow and step away.
Yeah.
That was it.
Wow.
But it was completely different to how things are now. I mean, Grandmaster Rhee now is much more approachable.
Yeah.
The last, I suppose, 10 years, he's been more approachable. You can talk to him, whereas before all the masters were kept at bay. General Choi was kept at bay. You wouldn't meet him. He had a group of people around him that stopped you getting there. And at one time, I was one of them people. We'll talk about that when we come to General Choi.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
We're talking of the early days. I was still only a yellow tag at this time now.
Oh, really?
Well, first time I met him, I was a white belt.
Yeah,
so he promoted me as, to yellow tag, which I found out about 6 weeks later. You didn't get told on the night. He'd mark the grading cards and he'd take them away. He brought them. They were there. So, they were paper in them days, a bit of paper. And then he'd go away. And when he got back to Glasgow, I think he was in Glasgow then, he would sit down and he would do the results, because he didn't grade by face. He graded by what was written on the paper.
Yes.
And that was it. So he looked at it and then, yes, pass, good marks, bad marks, whatever. That was it. Because I asked him that many years later. He says, "Oh, don't look at face. Just write down everything. Result comes from what you read."
Right.
If you look at the person, you will give a result because you know that person.
Yes.
It made sense.
He developed the shorthand that you write on the grading.
Yeah. Shorthand. Yeah, it was symbols and things in there that you could write quickly down.
Yeah.
Because he'd write in Korean even quicker.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Well, yeah. If he wrote something in Korean, because the Korean language is different. They've got the sounds, and the sounds make a shape.
Yeah.
But that can be used for many different things. It's like I said when we were talking earlier about Sanskrit. It can be interpreted in different ways. The same word. So they use the same word in combination. It means something else.
Yes.
So, and that was it. So he just writes certain things down, and that was it. But yeah, he came up with the symbols that were on the paper that you could put down. So as we developed into examiners, we knew about them, and instructors on instructor courses are taught about them. So everybody knows. So now you leave the grading cards with the instructor, he keeps them, and after the grading, he can look and correct people.
Yeah.
Or should be able to.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you obviously he made a big impression on you at the very beginning.
Oh, yes.
His presence, as you say, and I have heard this before, and I have been fortunate to meet him, and I was at a championship in the final sparring, and I was a blue stripe, blue tag, and fortunately I managed to win it, and I got to meet first man master and shook his hand and everything. So yeah, I felt the presence as well, very much. And
it's different when his hand makes contact with you, isn't it?
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
He had a handshake.
Yeah, yeah, very much. And obviously his distinctive hand with the knuckles and size of the fist. Fantastic. So I guess training just carried on for you thereafter. You got more involved in it?
Yeah, just carried on.
There wasn't competitions then, or
there wasn't really competitions available to us. There was competitions about. A lot of it was in the Midlands, more up, I think, around Birmingham and that area. We were down in Oxford, and there was no motorways really then. Getting from A to B took a lot longer. We weren't encouraged to go to other clubs or go to competitions until you were good enough to compete. Because, as I say, it was, I think red belt was where competition started then. I can remember them being dropped to blue belt and then wanting to drop them lower again. So I did go in a competition as red belt, but it was all styles run by Kung Fu people.
Oh, okay.
But, a little bit different.
Yeah, sure.
So I got it's funny, I got a couple of warnings because I stuck a front leg side kick, just stood half on front leg side kick, bang, and it was 1 point stop, and it carried on, and I'd actually made contact with him, and nothing. So anyway, we're doing it again, and I did it again, and he did a reverse punch that stopped about so far away from me, and they gave him the point. That's all. And while he stops him, he says, "Front side kick doesn't work."
Really?
All right. So we carried on. So next one, I give him a front leg side kick, and he went across the floor and landed outside the square. And then I got disqualified.
Oh, okay.
For excessive contact.
Yeah.
I said, front leg side kick, it doesn't work. That was it, Anyway, that was just a point to make, and lots of things like that, So if you're in other people's competitions, then other people's rules apply.
Yeah.
So many things, are not accepted when, but we know different,
Yeah, absolutely. But so your classes at the time were a couple of hours long, 2 hours long?
2 hours, 2 hours long. We generally had 3 a week, So it was Monday, Thursday, Sunday. Then when I moved to the Press Steel Club, then it was the same. I think it was still the same days, but it was much earlier. It was early evening. We started work at 8, so we had to be finished before 8. So so it was probably 5:30 to 7:30 was the time, so you could get into into work. It was only just across the road. You used the same car park for the factory as you did for the social club, so it was just the normal walk you had. But
Well,
so
the average man that would be working there, different outlook to having this Korean martial art accessible to you. Did you take up on the Korean culture side of things?
No,
terminology or anything?
The Korean thing never happened to me really. We did it, and I think I went on a first instructor's course as a first degree, and I'd learned so much before then. I could count to 10.
Yeah.
I knew attention, parallel, side kick, turning kick, and punch. Basically, that was knowledge of terminology. It wasn't big, it wasn't pushed in them days. So this is probably about 1978 now. So there wasn't the big push on terminology until after that. So on the instructor's course, as we started, it was, started talking on there. Grandmaster Rhee was running it, or Master Rhee in them days. And he was saying, of course, you have to be able to speak in terminology in Korean, which is Korean. And it's part of the test for the instructors.
Right.
So it was a 3-day course, Friday evening, all day Saturday, Sunday, finished about tea time, and then you went home. And that was in Glasgow. And I went up with my club instructor at the time then. And we bought a book which was the it wasn't the encyclopedia, it was the Taekwondo book, the big orangey coloured one.
Oh yeah.
To learn terminology, and we were up all night those nights ready for the test.
Right, right.
Learning the Korean terminology.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to do for the course. So I learned more about it in, at that point. We instill it in students now. We talk about it from day one, the cultures and things like that. I mean, a lot of people say it's Korean culture, what Taekwondo is, but I think it's more because it's a military martial art. General Choi was military. It's more military culture, but the officer side of military. So when the culture that goes around the dining, how you are with people is more around that. Yes, Koreans bow to each other and they acknowledge that way. We do the same in Taekwondo, but that was more how the soldier worked with the officers. And when we go to dinner, the way you sit, the way the order you sit is, that side of culture, which is more the military.
Yeah.
Because military culture is the same. It's a silver spoon service that we have if you go somewhere for a silver spoon dinner,
right.
With a dicky bow and that, and you're served on by the waiters and waitresses, and the cutlery is laid out in a certain order. Everything had its order.
Yeah.
Which is from that side of culture,
yeah.
worldwide, which I think basically was the military, within the Taekwondo thing, and that's what because Korean, there's a lot of things in Korean there's a lot of things that are not in Korean that are in Taekwondo.
Okay.
When you look at things, I think that's quite a long-winded one to talk about, but basically, there's things like that they're British. We have attention. We have close stance, Moa.
Yeah.
And we have a few of them. We have A, B, C, and so on.
Yeah.
A, B, and C is not Korean.
Of course, yeah.
They don't have it in Korean.
No.
So General Choi put that in, things like that. So there was a lot of, or there is a lot of that, which is it was written for Taekwondo.
Yeah.
And maybe they use Korean-based words, like Taekwondo is not a Korean word. It's words that make up Taekwondo.
Yes.
Foot, fist, up, but it's not foot because we know Bal is foot, we know Son is hand, and so on. So Taekwon is not for fist, but it's using the use of the limbs.
Yes.
The legs, the feet, or the arms. So it's using the body as a self-defense system, Taekwondo.
Yeah.
So the lower body, the upper body, and things like that. You can get into heated discussions with people on it, but basically, Taekwon is not for fist, but it is in Taekwondo. That's what it means. The use of the legs and feet, or the use of the arms and the hands. Because elbow isn't hand, but it still comes under, still comes under the hand.
Hand technique, yeah.
Yeah. So and that's what I think as senior people should be looking at and getting clear in their mind what it is and have a different look at it.
Yes.
Not just take for granted. I never took everything for granted. I did, I suppose. I was shown how to do things, but and explained it. But if it didn't make sense, I asked. That doesn't make sense to me. I did it several times with General Choi, or more than several times, but that's another story.
It's interesting what you're saying, sir. So these terms aren't necessarily literal, and it's not just Korean. They're kind of blended as a form of symbols.
Yeah.
A recognition of what we're doing.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting. And so you obviously progressed through. At some point, you became an instructor. But when would that have happened?
Well, I started teaching, I suppose, as a red belt or black tag within my club. We had other black belts in the club, but because we worked nights, So if you're going to, sometimes overtime was compulsory. You didn't have a choice.
Yeah, of course.
You know, that's how it was, right? It's working, but you didn't work later because the day shift started at 8 o'clock. You finished at 7, and you had to clear out, get the car park clear for everyone to get in. So you started an hour early. So you'd start at 7 instead of 8.
Wow.
So quite often, you know, the black belts, because they were like, well, they were actually all the black belts there at the time were engineers of some description within the factory.
Yeah.
And if there was work to be done between shifts, they'd get called in and have to work. So
Right.
I'd be left as a senior, run the classes. So
Okay.
I'd take the class. It was just, we knew we did it. You know, the senior person would take the class. And if I was senior, then I would take it. And that was it, you know. So I began teaching then, you know, as a black tag.
Yeah.
Carried on, but yeah.
Yeah, was that pretty straightforward for you all? Because like you said, you had to take turns, I suppose.
We just did what we did.
Yeah.
We had a fixed warm up. So, you know, from day one starting, we had a fixed warm up. It wasn't somebody else take over and do a different warm up. It wasn't. We had a fixed warm up. So you made sure all the joints worked. You were conditioning your body from day one. You know, conditioning, people think it's just going punch on the pad, but it isn't. Conditioning is your body being prepared to do Taekwondo.
Yeah.
Because it's all, you know, awfully powerful. It's disastrous if you're not conditioned right. So, you know, they're doing the push-ups, the sit-ups, the squats, all the basic exercise we did was conditioning your body to do Taekwondo.
Yeah.
So if you did your push-ups correctly, which was insisted on, the correct postures, then you're conditioning the whole of your body, not just your arms.
Yeah.
You know, and that was the important thing. So the warm-up was the conditioning process, if you like, before class started.
Yeah, yeah.
And everybody did the same one, no matter who it was. They'd come in and carry on. It was a system to get that through.
Yeah.
Was it, you know, nowadays, if you ask someone to do a warm-up, they'll come in and do their warm-up. There's no thought of what it is. They want to try and better what you were doing,
Yeah.
if you ask someone to do it. You know?
Yeah.
And it's another interesting thing when you're asked to do it as a assistant. If you're asked to do a warm-up, and I'll tell you about this when I'm talking about General Choi, you only do warm-up.
Yeah.
You're not instructed to give corrections or teach. So you don't cover Taekwondo techniques. You just do basic warm-up exercises.
Yeah.
So when you're there before the instructor comes in, that's what you should do. Just the warm-up.
Yeah.
Until you're given authority to do something else, which is, you know, completely different nowadays.
Yeah.
The way things are.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
So the whole way things were run was differently, you know, was different.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah.
And yeah, so you became an instructor as a covering sort of instructor within the class.
Yes.
And then did that progress to you having your own school eventually?
I lived in a town probably about, I don't know, 5 or 7 miles away, was Abingdon, outside of Oxford. And there was a club started in there after a while, you know, it started in there.
Yeah.
And I'd go now and again, when I could go, I'd go now and again to the class. And the instructor was okay. He came from Morris Radiators Club and opened in Abingdon. He lived just outside Abingdon. And after he'd been running a year or 2 years, he was getting married, life was changing. He wanted to move over, and he phoned me one day, come in, you know, can you come down to class and have a chat? So I went down. He said, I'm having to give up as teacher. Will you take the classes over? So then I took over the class, which was really around 1980, I think.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Somewhere about there. And so that became my club. And I started teaching that, which kept me away from my own classes then. Occasionally I could go, but, you know, once I moved away, that was it. Other people then became the assistants within that club.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so obviously for a while you're juggling the time with work and Taekwondo, because they're quite long shifts, quite long time at work.
Well, we did 8 at night till 7 in the morning.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it was. And you did 4 nights. You didn't do 5 nights. The 5th night would be overtime. It'd be Friday evening. It'd be overtime.
Yeah.
Day shift was 7 till 4:30 or something like that. There was a time, you know, and so they were longish shifts. The night shift was a long one, but I say it was 4 nights.
Yeah.
You had 3 days off if you didn't go to bed. You know, when you come home, which we didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't sleep on Monday daytime. I didn't sleep on Friday daytime. So I had a 3-day weekend.
Okay.
You know, a 4-day weekend, really.
Yeah.
Quite often it was difficult to get through the night at work, but because you hadn't slept. But yeah, you know.
But I just think it's very interesting, like you said, how things change and people kind of want perfect circumstances to do things nowadays, don't they?
Oh yeah.
They don't, you know, if they feel a bit tired, they probably put the lesson off attending and so forth, you know. Whereas what you're talking about is full working shift, physical work, and then training at the end. I mean, very motivated.
But we also used to train lunchtime at work.
Right.
Because the instructor was there, so we'd get together sometimes, you know, in the moonlight and do something, and or when we were working on the line, there was guys also there that were doing it, and we'd have competitions.
Wow.
So you'd be between your jobs, between the car coming down the line, you'd have a minute or minute and a half, and who could do the most push-ups between the cars. And think, you know, between the next station, so it'd be coming along, and you'd be working on the car, and instead of just standing there doing it or kneeling down, you'd be trying to get in the splits beside the car, doing your job. I mean, crazy stuff. But at night we'd meet, and at midnight was lunch about, and we'd go out. And I actually remember training with a guy, and we were working together, and I'd go out in this little patio area and do my thing, and he turned up, and we started training together then at night, just doing a little bit of sparring and that. And he wore a black tracksuit. He had white socks, black shoes. So we would spar, and the only thing you could see was the sock coming at you. It was a great way to learn to spar, I'll tell you. But it was amazing, you know, great days, great fun.
Yeah.
Amazing we never got hurt or anything like that. But, you know, and that was training, you know, at night in your own time. And every night you do that, you between your shifts on your tea break, whatever, you'd be doing Taekwondo. That's what it was, because most people you're working with did Taekwondo with you. That's how it developed, you know.
Wow, what a time to start. I mean, such early days, but it took off so big in that.
The classes were quite big, quite strong, you know, in them days. Yeah.
So obviously, braking has been a part of your notoriety.
That fascinated me from day one, the punching of the brick. So that's I got into that, you know, and I had quite strong hands, and my legs were quite strong before Taekwondo. Because I was in construction and heavy lifting, and hands were the working part. So my hands were reasonably strong. So I got into the breaking, punching bricks, chopping bricks. Loved that. We were doing that every night. And construction in the 70s was going everywhere. You know, they were building houses everywhere. So we'd go out for a run around the factory, the outside, and you'd touch on several building sites on the way around and just grab a few bricks and carry on jogging. You go back and break them. The rubbish. That was it. That's how it went every night. It was break a couple of bricks. You know. Everybody did it. There'll be 3 or 4 of us running, and we'd all grab the bricks. Then we go into the battery shed, if you like, the battery house, and put them on the thing and start punching and chopping. That was it.
So what was the preferred way then? Because obviously you probably didn't have a holder, did you? You just what?
No, put them in the vise or or wedge him up. We had a little frame made to hold it, you know, and things like that. I remember once going on years later. I got out of the factory. I had enough of it. I went back, and I was on construction again. I was a scaffolder, and we were working away, and people started talking about the martial art. Oh, he's kung fu man, he's a karate man, you know, whatever. He punches them bricks, blah blah blah, and that. And I go, oh. So the brickies have then been giving me a bit of jibe. Let's see you punch some of these bricks then. So, all right, well, I'll meet you down the brickyard on this site at lunchtime or tea time, and we'll set them up. So we had to make a hole in a stack of bricks to put a couple of bricks, and then do some punching and chopping of the bricks in there. And they gave it. I need a lump hammer, a bolster to break them. You know, we were punching them in them. You know, that was it. Brilliant. You know, so it was good fun days. But that's what it was about. You know, that was the challenges we had. We made ourselves strong and to be able to do them things. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
The training was conditioning. You know, we didn't do separate conditioning. Your training was conditioning. Yeah. Yes, you had to do a little bit extra, but you were doing on your fists. When you were confident, then you were doing the bouncing push-ups or jumping push-ups, whatever you called them, you know. So everybody was doing them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I saw Grandmaster Rhee do flying push-ups, and I was amazed the height he got off the floor. You know, his party piece was doing the jumping push-ups on the stage and make the big bangs. And if he did a seminar, he'd punch the wall and bang, it'd go, and bang, it'd go, you know. And when he did it in the barracks in the old gym, the old army gym we were in, he'd punch the walls. Always bits of the wall fell down from the top. Bits of the ceiling would start dropping off on the corner. And he'd go, oh. But yeah, I mean, they were good things. But he was a good 3 foot off the floor, horizontal.
Yeah.
You know, he was above waist height. And I've gone, how can you do that?
That is incredible.
But that was a new challenge. Yeah. Because I had to do my best to do that. And yeah, I could get quite high up in my heyday.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I'm 74 now. These sort of things don't happen. You know, my body doesn't want it. I don't actually do full-on conditioning, you know, training. I haven't done braking for a while. I've got a holder downstairs. I had bricks there until 2 days ago. I give them away on boards. They were just taking up too much space all the time. So I give them away. But yeah, I used to up to maybe about 2 years ago. I still did braking, particularly if somebody come, I would demonstrate, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
It was always handy, you know, to do some. But if I wanted to do a demonstration with power braking, then I would have to do some serious training for several months,
right,
before I wouldn't damage my hand.
Yeah.
You know, yes, I could probably punch a brick now, but the skin from my knuckles will probably end up somewhere up my wrist, you know, because it's just not that hard to do it. But, you know, it doesn't mean I couldn't hit somebody's body very, very hard if I needed to.
Yeah, no, I can see.
Yeah, it's completely different, you know. Yeah.
Well, fantastic. So did you see, obviously first Grandmaster Rhee would have done demonstrations as well as the push-ups?
I saw him a few times, you know, a couple of times doing stuff. I was fortunate to be invited to one as a colour belt, and that's where I see him doing the push-ups. And it was a bit of a competition, you know, and it was in the early 70s. Just after I started, I missed the Masters demonstrations of the 70s. I couldn't get away to go to them.
Yeah.
I mean, married with kids, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
You're relying on one income. You can't say, right, I'm going to spend a few £100 and go here.
Yeah.
You know, it's not possible. You know, you save up and it's your family holiday. It was a family holiday if you could afford one. You couldn't afford anything in between. So everything was more or less local. So when he was local, then it was possible to do.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, and you saw him. Have you got any images that you remember most about something he might have done? Was it overhead kick or?
One of the most memorable ones is moving on was probably in the mid-80s. It was around the time of the World Championships in Glasgow. And at the time, he wasn't well. He was quite ill around that time. And after the championships, they took him away for medical attention. Actually, in Korea, General Choi insisted he went,
Right.
because he didn't trust the Western doctors, because they said the wrong words to him when he went in to look at them. You know,
Oh, right.
you know, it's the food you eat, it's the drugs you take, and that's it, up and out. You know, so he wouldn't have anything to do. So, but yeah, he had. I think he had TB of the stomach, is what it was.
Yeah.
But he was very, very ill at the time, and I was. We were up at the academy doing some stuff in Glasgow, preparing for the World Championships, and it was either the Scottish Daily Mail or the Scottish News of the World, or one of them, come around and they wanted to take some photos. So what sort of photo do you want? We want, you know, we want Mr. Rhee, because they wouldn't call him Master or anything, you know, because of the newspaper. We want Mr. Rhee, all this, you know, you people sat around, and some of the trophies he's got around, we take a picture of him, you know, with them. So, okay. So he hadn't shown up. So I went to his, to the apartment above the academy, knocked on the door, and his wife answered. I said, there's the press downstairs. They want to speak to Master Rhee, like they want to interview him. It's not possible today. And she closed the door. You wouldn't go in. And he came out, he said, Master Rhee said, you have to do it. And I said, they don't want to interview me, they want to interview him. Blah, blah, blah. And so we talked a couple of times, that went, and eventually he showed up. And he stands probably about 5'10", maybe 5'11", you know, normally. And he was this little person that came out with his dobok on. Right. And I more or less helped him down the stairs. I thought, you know, this is it. And we got to the bottom step before we were going to turn and go into the gym. And he sort of went, he pushed me off, and he stood up, and he sort of like grew about 6 inches.
Wow.
And he walked in like there was nothing wrong. And if you didn't know that, you wouldn't have known it. And, you know, I've seen that on several occasions, you know, but he walked into there, and everybody clapped him. Oh, Mr. Rhee, we want to take a picture. What picture do you want? And they said, the one where you do the 2 kicks, do it over the people. Huh, okay, yeah, you know, mumble, and he wanders off to the back, and we sit down around, and I'm sat down, and the trophies are all here, sort of beside me. I forget who else was there, but we were all sat there like in an arc around, and that's it. And we sat down waiting, looking at the camera, and I heard, the trophies came out in front of us. That was it as well, because there's quite a lot of stuff. It's you know, the things he'd been presented with. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I sat there and I hear, "Wah!" You know, his big shout. He goes, "Jump, jump, 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 jump." Silence. That's when he's airborne. You know, and I see him here, at the, you know, in my peripheral vision, does the kick, and he went backwards.
Wow.
Landed.
Really? Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. And so how far back, you know, he probably only went a foot back or something like that, but he was traveling that way and then went that way. Did that happen? Yeah. So anyway, it was all over, and I helped him. I escorted him back, you know, to his thing. And I said, "How'd you do that?" He said, "What?" I said, "Well, you were in front of me, but landed behind me." His answer: "Can't land on trophies." That was it.
Brilliant.
He went back upstairs. Then he got halfway up the stairs and changed shape again. That was it, you know. But yeah, so that was another really amazing thing that happened. Now, you know, when you use your core muscles, this is going off the subject, we learn to move and move. We shift.
Yeah. And
when you're good at it, you can actually shift in the air. We all can.
Yeah.
You know, we were taught to do it. You know, we follow. We shift in the air. but we don't, a lot of the time we don't realize it. I think I used to be able to demonstrate it from parallel stance, probably about shoulder width. I used to be able to move quite well. I don't know what I could do now. It's not a thing I practice that often, but you know, jumping isn't the main thing I do. But yeah, so and that was it. Shifting, changing direction, in purpose, you know, being useful. We've done it, I've done it in sparring, you know, I've done it demonstrations in sparring, things like that, you know, and I did have a discussion with General Choi on it. We'll talk about that when we talk about General Choi, you know, and things like that, you know, but yeah, so, you know, and that's moved us, you know, probably on to about 1984 time now, 83, 84,
yeah,
the World Championships. So I got involved then in the executive of the UKTA in the early 80s, area representative and things like that, and got involved. And I was involved as the tournament committee, if you like, for the World Championships. So that was my involvement, where I actually got to meet and talk to Grandmaster Rhee. Right. So I got to know him more and things like that. I mean, there's lots of things were said about him. I mean, I opened a school in Reading in the early 80s, for instance, and it was a struggle. There was no other Taekwondo around there at that time, and I developed it up and built it up, and I invited him down. We used to travel, when we only had half a dozen students, we travelled across to Oxford for the gradings, but eventually, when I had enough students, I said, would you mind coming to Reading? He said, yeah, of course. So I have my class in Abingdon still, and I still had the one in Reading. So we went there, and he came across and did it. And you know, he'd always split the grading fee, a percentage depending on what grade you were and what it was with the instructors. And anyway, we did the grading and that, and he stayed in the hotel. I picked him up in the morning to take him to the stage. He was traveling by train. I think, I'm not sure where he was going from there. I think he was heading west, so might have been going towards Cardiff or something from Reading. And we got to the station, and he's going to get on the train. He pulled an envelope out of his pocket. He said, "Oh, you take that." And I was going. He said, "No, don't open it yet." I thought, just a thank you note, and I put it in my pocket and went back. And anyway, when I got back to the house and opened the envelope, it was all the grading fees. Wow. And I phoned him up. Couldn't do on. There was no mobile phones. I had to wait until he was somewhere I could phone him. So he's back here. I said, "Sir," I said, "you give me the wrong envelope. You give me an envelope and all the grading fees in." He said, no. He said, "You needed to build your schools." Right. That was it. Yet you hear people talk about how tight and stingy he was. And I never met a man like that. The man I knew was completely different. Yeah. He was always generous, always giving. Yeah. If he had it, he give it. Yeah. And that's the person he was. Yeah. And people complained about, you know, oh, I give him the wrong money. He never give me anything back. But one thing I found out long time afterwards, he never counted money you give him. You said there was £100. There was £100. It was in the pocket. Yeah. Wouldn't count it because everything was on trust. We had an agreement. Yeah. Verbal agreement. We agree to it. You do it. And he's still very much like that. You know, if you tell him something, he agree. You know, if you agree on something, that's it. Yeah. The verbal agreement, not a written agreement. You know. Yeah. So. But very strong agreement, like you're saying. That's the nature. Yeah. Yeah. To do it that way. Yeah. Yeah, and that's it. And he is, you know, your word is your bond. Yeah. He always mentions the stock exchange. You know, the guys there do buying and selling shares. Their culture is when you put your hand up, that's a signed contract. That's it. Yeah. So if there's a bid on something, you put your hand up. You can't go, "Oh no, I don't want that." Too late. Yeah. And so your word is your bond. And that's the same. He said it should be in Taekwondo. Your word is your bond. You agree on something. That's it. If you don't want to do it, then let's get together and talk about it again. See what's wrong. You know, so many people, you know, don't agree with that. If it's not in writing, then it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
So he was a completely different person that I met once I knew him.
Yeah.
I never knew him, but working closer with him.
Yeah.
I eventually became the secretary of the UKTA. That was after Tom McCullum, Master McCullum, or Grandmaster McCullum now, went to Vienna. So that was in probably about 85, somewhere about that 86, when the ITF moved to Vienna. Grandmaster Rhee offered his secretary to General Choi to help run the office admin, because Tom McCullum was good at admin.
Yeah.
And that was it. So he got a full-time job with the ITF, and they needed a new secretary, and I got appointed. I didn't want it.
Right.
Because when he said, "Who do you think should be?" I think he said, "No, we'd like you to be." And I said, "But I'm not good at reading and writing. Writing's not my thing. You can learn. We'll get someone to do it for you. You can have someone to help you.
Yeah.
But we want you to be the secretary."
Right.
That was it. So I said, "Okay, I'll take it on until we get someone better." And 10 years later, so about 10 years I was secretary before I eventually resigned, and we got. But I resigned maybe 3 years before that. But that's when we found somebody capable of doing the job or willing to do the job.
Yeah.
Because it was not an easy one to do, because at that time, as UKTA secretary to Grandmaster Rhee's secretary, you was the secretary of the All Europe Taekwondo Federation. You was the secretary of ITF in the UK and Europe. You had many hats to wear. You had to play them all, and deal with them all.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a simpler job as you take a couple of notes and whatever it was.
But nevertheless, you served it for 10 years, sir, which is a significant amount of time, isn't it?
Yeah, so I travelled a lot with him in them days, assisting him, and things. Going with him when we went to championships. I mean, I was going as team manager or working with FGMR, so I'd manage that side of it. I'd go just go with him to the meetings. He didn't need a bodyguard. He didn't need anything like that. If you knew him, he didn't need a bodyguard. He'd send you away to protect you. Which actually happened on one occasion. We had the office. Is it all right to talk about this now, or we're going to wait for a certain time? He moved from Glasgow to London to Harrow at one time because when he got Master McCullum to be the secretary, General Choi wanted him to be secretary of ITF, and he said, "No, I can't. Move to Vienna. No, I can't. I will move nearer to London Airport so I can be on a plane very quickly." So he, and that was it. So that's when he got Tom McCullum to go. So we moved the office to Harrow, and we put a porter cabin in the bottom of his garden. We bought a porter cabin and put it in the bottom of the garden, which became the UKT office. And one day I used to travel up from Reading each day, and I saw these two characters walking around, Oriental looking guys, and we're in the mid 80s, probably about 85, 86, somewhere about there. And they were very 70s. They were in suits, check jacket type suits, collars that were out here, bell bottoms, Oriental guys. And I watched them, they walked past round. Then they came walking past again. They walked past about 3 times, and I went and knocked on the house door. I said, "Can you tell Master Rhee there's a couple of suspicious guys walking outside the house?" He looks out the window. He says, "You go in office and stay." I said, "No, I'll come with you, sir." He said, "No, you go in office and stay." So he walked out and confronted them, and they darted behind a car and tried to keep a car between him and them. And they were Korean Secret Service, I suppose, because it was just prior to the Olympics, and what was his name? The WTF president, Yoon Won Kim, and was coming over to Britain and someone else, and they were concerned for their safety because ITF Rhee lives in London.
Right.
Basically, that was it. Yeah, but yeah, they were running around the thing, but he wouldn't have me anywhere near it.
Right.
I mean, they spoke in Korean. They didn't speak in English. I could hear, you know.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, yeah, no, you go in office. You stay in office. Lock the door. You know, that's it. You know. But
Yeah.
yeah. So he was always concerned for other people's safety as well.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow.
But yeah, he just go out and confront them. No nonsense. It was quite funny. Then they left. Yeah. But that's what it worked out it was going to be. But yeah, so that was something I thought I'd forgotten about.
Yeah. No, fantastic to hear these accounts, sir.
And that's how I started Taekwondo. I thought we were talking about.
Yeah. Well, so you obviously mentioned General Choi, the founder, and he recognised you as the outstanding instructor. You got some awards for being the best instructor in Britain.
I got, yeah, I mean, it worked out around that time. He actually started giving an annual award,
yeah,
as well. So it came out, and it still carries on today. But I remember after having the award, we were in a meeting in Toronto. It was an ITF Congress. It's probably about 96, somewhere about there.
Yeah.
And, there was a lot of stuff going on. There was a lot of people from the UK had gone. There'd been a lot of meetings with General Choi for people to rejoin the ITF and be part of it. And it was quite funny. Then we were in the Congress meeting. We were all sat around in different places. And he says, he was talking about loyalty, instructors' loyalty, and how loyalty is important. And he said, so the best instructor proves loyalty and things like that. And he said, yes, he said, the best instructor in UK with loyalty to his instructor and to ITF is him over there. And he pointed, and it was me.
Wow.
Because the others were on a different part of the room. And I thought, oh, now there's going to be trouble in the UK. Yeah, because of the loyalty thing, as I'd stayed with Grandmaster Rhee through the troubles that had gone on with, with the several splits at that time. There was the THEB left at the time of the World Championships in '84. That was a formation of the THEB. Then the UKTF, which was Sheena Sutherland, Peter Harkus, and people like that, and Jim Scott and several others went. Roger Koo formed that. That then fragmented to something else, and then a bit later on, I think Raymond Choi left and formed the BITF, whichever one.
UTF, was it?
BUTF, yeah, his one. So there's always fragments that come out, and then other people left and formed their own little groups, just carried on, but that was the nature of things, and even with them groups, I met with General Choi and they were all independently meeting, but he'd only recognise one body per country.
Yeah.
So, and that was still the UKTA with me as secretary. Yeah. And he said to me, to me, but there was other people in the meeting, we have to form something that they can all work together. You need to form. So we talked about it and we formed the UK ITF is what we talked about. And he said, who will be president? I need to know who. I said, in my opinion, sir, I said, we can't have a president. I said, because as soon as you have a president, and then you've got a problem. I said, it'd have to be a neutral person who's not to do with Taekwondo. I said, you could appoint someone or invite someone like Prince Charles or Prince Philip or a name or, something like that. He said, who do I talk to? I said, well, you don't talk to anybody. I said, your secretary talks to our secretary. That should be the procedure. That's the procedure you tell me should happen. Nobody should have direct access to you once it's formed. I said, so all we can do is to have a board of vice presidents, have a round table of vice presidents. When there's time for a president to appear, we'll have a president, but that could be an appointed position for a year. They're just the voice of the council. So at that time, there was only two. There was only the UKTF and the UKTA. So there was always concerns over finances. But so the UKTF, when that became the Treasury, and the UKTA was the secretary. But as time went on, there was other groups joined, and they wanted to vote a new secretary. And General Choi banged the table. He said, "He is secretary. I will only deal with him." That was me. Oh, yeah. So he would only deal with me as a secretary. Yeah. You know, that was it, because he knew where he stood. Yeah. You know, and that was the sort of thing. So other groups joined, and we had the round table. There was a time when things got the better of my life, and I moved away, and you know, I had to go and recover on financial grounds, shall we say. And at the end of that, I went to Australia, where I had a holiday, and I stayed there for 5 years. It was a good holiday, you know, and that was it. And the new secretary of the UKTA took over, but things fell apart. They didn't keep it together. Right. UK ITF didn't work like it did, and one thing led to another, you know, and it's how things happen. Yeah. It's part of the nature, I guess, of how things have evolved to this day, and still continue to do so in some way. Well, the conspiracies and the backstabbing, I suppose is the word, has been there from day one. Yeah. You know, in the Oriental side of it, you know, there's always something. Somebody wants to be better than they are. I mean, we try to form things, you know, and the hardest thing, like I talked about that, was who's in charge. Yeah. Okay, so we got the names, and this is one of the things. We got the names. We'll have a round table of the names. Whose name's at the top? Somebody has to be first. That's right. Yeah. You can't write the names all in a circle, you know. So who? No, can't have that. You know, and that was a lot of the problems. It's where people stand. They want to know who's senior. Well, why is his name in front of mine? Yeah. Why is he standing in front of me in the line? You know, and all that has always been a problem. Yeah. And that has been a lot of the problems with the formations of groups and that, you know, trying to get a master's council, trying to get a grand master's council to make things happen, falls apart on them grounds. Who's in charge? Who's in charge? Yeah. Very much so. Not what it can actually do. How can it benefit? You know. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, picking up on your personal outlook with Taekwondo, and yourself as a Grand Master, I noticed on your website you said that you're open to Taekwondoists, not necessarily any affiliations. Yeah. I've got a small gym at home. I've had WTF people, I've non-ITF people who do similar patterns, come in and train, not a problem. You know, they train, they want to know. If they don't like what I say, they up to them. You know, I say, well, this is as it is. This is what I understand. This is what I've got out from General Choi. You know, I train with, obviously, Grandmaster Rhee a lot. I've trained with other people, Park Chung Tae. I did quite a bit with Park Chung Tae, Park Chung Soo. You know, what other names can I pull out of the hat that I used to train? Not a lot, actually, of different people have run seminars. There was some Grandmaster Rhee invited in the later years, the North Korean masters that were in other countries. He brought them over. I trained with those. Yeah. Well, obviously, a couple of things. Obviously, General Choi seminars, you managed over 30 of them, sometimes 2, 3 times. I've tried to count them, and I just lose count. The first one was probably one of the most interesting. It was early 80s. It was in Bristol. And he came over, he had 2 masters with him, and I went on. It wasn't an international instructor course, it was just a seminar. And he said something. And it was about, we've always had, since it evolved as it is, a form of sine wave. When I first started, it was very karate based. And I actually had that discussion with General Choi, and I've had it with Grandmaster Rhee. So I'm not worried about saying it. I said to General Choi on occasion, why why did you let your instructor teach me karate? And then I explained, and he laughed. Yeah, oh, well, you know, but Taekwondo moved on, it evolved in the 80s, is where it started. When he completed the encyclopedias and said, now Taekwondo's ready, now Taekwondo's complete. And then we started learning about sine wave, but we had like a corkscrewy type action, pivoting on your feet up and down. You had heel bounce, you had knee spring, you had a rising type waist twist, and you had sine wave. Sine wave was the catchword that came in. You know, somebody obviously said it. Like we all learn something. Somebody says something to me, and I like that. I'll use that.
Yeah.
Somebody obviously said to, you know, in General Choi's company, oh, it's sort of like sine wave. You know, oh, right, you know,
Yeah.
that sounds interesting. We'll use it. You know, so that was it. But, you know, and it was around the sine wave. And we did it, and it was doing a punch. It was maybe do-san. It was block, then punch. And I said, that don't work. You know, what do you mean it doesn't work? I said, that sine wave does not work. Sine wave does not work, because it was forwards, backwards. You know, more forwards than up and down. And I said, it doesn't work. So, and I wouldn't let it go, but I wasn't getting an answer. So we move on, and then it comes again, and every time I'm asking questions. And anyway, Master Rhee comes over, and he says, General Choi says, go away and practice 200 or 300 times, and then we can discuss it. I said, thank you, sir. Finished, no problem. You know, that was it. But I found out later, the Korean words that were spoken was, tell him to shut up or get out. Which, you know, which is quite funny in a way, you know, because I was interrupting the seminar. General Choi had so many hours and he wanted to cover so many things, you know, and it was all around the introduction of sine wave and that. But anyway, so a few days later, he's moved to another area. So I think he did maybe 3 or 4 seminars, and he'd gone up to, I don't think he went to London. If he went to London, I couldn't go to the London one, but he went up to, I think it was Derby. And I thought, I'm off to Derby. I'm going to challenge this. So it's on again, and we're doing this. And it comes, and he says, sir, this doesn't work. What you say, sine wave? He goes, what do you mean it doesn't work? So it was just him. The other masters that were traveling with were somewhere else in the corner doing something, talking to some other people about it. Yeah. And I said, this block and then punch. He said, who taught you that? I said, that's what's demonstrated by your master. Which one? And I said, that one. So I pointed, and he called him over. He said, demonstrate. 1, 2, do-san, you know, slap on the top of the head. You do wrong. That was it.
Really?
Yeah. Because he was moving from that heels up and down.
Yeah.
And that's what we copy, because 99.9300% of what we see is visual.
Yeah.
We don't listen to the words, we see visual. And yeah, so that I thought, but you've got to persevere. You've got to keep on. Because I don't accept the answer, but I'll go away and practice it, and I'll come back and challenge it. I'll come back and challenge it. So, you know, so yeah, so I got a bit of a reputation on that one, you know, because I would always ask questions and I'd always want answers.
Yeah.
So that doesn't work. I challenged when he was doing Taege, the W-shaped block. It doesn't work. You know, I want to demonstrate this. I want to put this situation to my students in class for them to practice in 1 step or 3 step or something. I said, it doesn't work. He said something, mumbled something, and we carried on. No, you don't understand. I said, well, please explain. So he demonstrated something. And I said, sir, that won't work. You know, and that was it. And he shrugged and he walked away. Anyway, so, and then I challenged other patterns, movements and things like that. But the Taege one went a while. And that was, I forget where we were on that. But at the end of the seminar, he said, because I asked about forwards and backward blocking.
Yeah.
You know, some of it doesn't work. You know, and he said, and what he said, and this was the W-shaped block, which is forward stepping in a way. I know you're traveling sideways in a pattern, but you're stepping at the time. And all he said when he was at the table packing up, he says, not always against hand and foot. And I left it at that. That was the answer.
Yeah.
So he's, you know, and he said on another occasion, stick, sometimes a stick. Well, a stick is a strange thing in our head, but, you know, it could be a club, a baton, something like that. We call them different things, you know, baseball, bat, whatever. So it could, so that made me then look at blocking and practicing and rehearsing, not rehearsing, experimenting.
Yeah.
With, would it work? So, you know, so backward stepping basically is when it's a hand technique. Forward stepping is mainly if it's a weapon. And if you think of it, we block the last joint. So if somebody's got like a rounder's bat, if you like, a club, and coming at you with that, if you step forward, your block is here. It works. And a lot of things like that then made sense.
Yes.
But that's all he said. Sometimes not hand and foot.
Yeah.
Sticks. But a lot of the problem, I think, why you don't get answers to questions is the language barrier. Now, General Choi is Korean. He speaks American, English, not proper English, you know, and there's a big difference in how they use things. Grandmaster Rhee, Korean, speaks very good English. But I think he still thinks Korean.
Yes.
He definitely dreams Korean. You know, when I've been with him on seminars and I've shared the room with him and he's restless in his night, you know, something's been going on, he's trying to answer something, it's Korean.
Yeah.
He analyzes in Korean, you know, so General Choi would analyze in Korean. So I'd say something in English, he would take that in interpretation, put it into Korean, try and answer it in Korean. There's no words. There's no words that match it.
No,
but near enough something. You know, all language. I mean, I only speak English. Well, a form of English. Oxonian country, I talk. not Oxford English.
No.
I speak local stuff. You know, that's it. And that's what you have to remember. You know, so if you speak other languages, and I speak to other people in different languages, you know, that from different countries who speak English, they agree. There's words in French that don't match English.
That's right.
In Spanish, in whatever, but they explain it slightly, and you'll pick it up. So when they explain, you pick it up. So General Choi had that problem. I don't think he personally had the problem, but he had the problem of making us understand what he was saying.
Yes.
And because we didn't have the time, you know, the first international instructor course I did was 2 weeks.
Wow.
5 days, weekend off, 5 days. In the middle, you had to get an umpire course, you know.
Yeah.
That got cut down to, I think it was a 4-day weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. That got cut down Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That got cut down Saturday, Sunday. Well, Saturday and half a Sunday.
Yeah, that's right. As it
you
is
know,
now, sort of thing.
And there's so much, and people attend that course, run through very fast and become international instructors.
Yeah.
But they haven't learnt anything. You know, so there's a lot missing in what's being translated.
Yeah.
And the people who've got that knowledge are becoming less. You know, the founder's gone. A lot of the senior people have gone. Grandmaster Rhee's in his 80s. You know, he's in his mid 80s.
Yeah.
But he's 10 years older than me, so he's 83, 84. You know, that's a hell of a life for a Korean.
Yeah.
Realistically, you know.
Yeah, of course.
So you know, so his ability to share is getting less and less. So his generation are going. And the generation that are really pushing now, if you look, are people that probably never even met General Choi.
Absolutely.
You know, or they were might have been colour belts or black belts, met General Choi, you know, and masters and grandmasters that haven't got that same knowledge that's been shared.
Yeah.
You know, I attended all them seminars with General Choi, and every one I learned something. You know, you had to. If you listen, you pick something up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All the time you pick that with Grandmaster Rhee. I assist him. I don't have a notebook when I'm stood beside him. He says things, a gem sticks in my head.
Yeah, I've heard this as well. Yeah.
I remember demonstrating something a couple of years ago with him. It was Inge Beck. You move across and do the turning kick.
Yes.
And I demonstrated and explained it to the people. And yes, it was good. He understood. He's nodding when I said it. And I went back to the table. He never said, "That's good. You explained that well." He said, "You never said you changed angle." Because to him, the words are, you're changing your angle.
Yeah.
Because that's what you're doing.
Yeah,
Change your angle for the turning kick to work. And you need to move half a shoulder width, well, up to a shoulder width over. You know, that's it. You know, and just things like that. So he wasn't disproving, but I could see from the look on his face that he agreed with what I said.
Yeah.
But there was no compliment afterwards. You never said change angle.
Yeah.
That's it. But it doesn't faze me, you know, it's just funny, but it's things you remember, you know, and things like that.
Really. And that's his mind, isn't it? That's his knowledge always there. It's
But you know, those things are being lost. There's a lot of movements in the patterns that are being lost because people don't understand. I mean, I know. Okay, we got palm pressing block in Jungun, and I know some people have changed that to low no fan block.
Right.
Because palm pressing block doesn't work. But their understanding of palm pressing block works, but you have to understand and know how it works. Every block has its purpose. Every block will work in the situation it's designed to be used. Now, if that situation isn't correct, you'll do something different. But you're prepared to do it. And you have to stop that attack, whatever it's coming at, the angle it's coming at, with whatever's at your disposal. And you rehearse the movements and practice the movements so they become second nature. So we have a difficulty with law because we defend and counterattack pre-thought. We work on reaction.
Yeah. And
self-defense is reaction. It is pre-thought. There is no such thing in law. Every action requires a plan. I forget the words they use, and that's it. You know, you have to think of movement, but no, we move in pre-thought. That's it. It's what we do. We rehearse it enough. You don't think about it. So, you know, and if the situation's right, you will use that block. I've demonstrated palm pressing block, and it freaks people out when it works.
When you show it correctly performs, yeah.
Yeah, but if you get it wrong, it hurts.
Yeah.
Like any block. If you get it wrong, it'll hurt. If you miss it, front teeth go. You know?
Yeah.
If you miss it, front teeth go. If your angle's wrong, it'll come under and get you. It'll go over and get you. The angles are there for a purpose. The movement is there for a purpose. Yeah. Where it finishes has purpose. You know? And that's it. You know, if it's an impact block or a pushing block or a pressing block, whatever it's designed to do has to be used in that right situation.
Yeah.
But you can't poo-poo it because it doesn't work for you. It doesn't work for you because you don't understand it.
Yeah.
You know, get to somebody who can explain that understanding, and you can see it, and then you can practice it and make it work. And then
I mean, this is so important, isn't it?
Yeah. I explain Taekwondo. I explain from feeling, not from the words in the book. I know some of the words in the book for the situations, but I explain a feeling that I feel. I explain sine wave on my feeling. I explain the blocks and the attacks on my feeling, what my body feels. And that's what I share on my seminars, this feeling. And I try to put that feeling over. Now, feeling, I'm using words for you to get a feel.
Yeah.
How do you explain color, green, to a blind person that has never seen?
Interesting. Yeah.
How do you explain taste to somebody who has no taste buds? You know, you describe it. I mean, you can take the Bible, okay, and you can look at Eric von Dankenen's book, The Spaceships of Ezekiel. That was another thing. It's mystique. It fascinated me.
Yeah.
He explains the Genesis, the start of the Bible, in rocket talk.
Okay.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
You know, out of the dark came light, out of light came, and he's talking out of space travel, and he's describing. It's called the Spaceships of Ezekiel. When whoever it was went up to heaven, went on a fiery chariot. He describes it. The rocket. He actually has pictures from the description in the Bible. It's really interesting. Whether you believe it or not, whether I believe it or not, is something else. I just find it really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so you know, that's the sort of thing we have to deal with. My feeling, I explain in words to pass to you. You absorb those words and change that into feeling. Might not work. You know, you got the transportation pods. You know, teleportation. The fly, the man, the fly, goes in, got mixed up.
Yeah.
Half and half. Put me back.
Yeah, exactly. I understand what you're saying. It's the same thing you explained about General Choi having that challenge to say, but he has to do it through a different language as well.
Yeah.
That's always the
Yeah,
isn't it, to teaching.
yeah. But you go on seminars. I mean, and I went seminars with General Choi, and there was a translator with him, and the translator was, you know, Hungarian, say, speaking English.
Yeah.
You know, who was it came over? Wang from Czech Republic came over a few years ago and brought his man with him to translate. And his man was Czech or something like that, spoke English. Yet we had 3 people on the seminar who could speak Korean quite well. So he could have spoke direct to Korean to speak in English. But no, he wanted to go through his man to convert Korean to Czech to English.
Yeah.
And it was lost.
Right.
Everybody's going, no, that's wrong word.
Yeah.
You know, and that is a hell of a problem within, you know, within the world. So, you know, if you can get to somebody who can talk in your language, fluent in your language, and can explain in your language, that's where you get the knowledge. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's my feeling on it, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, it's coming through loud and clear, sir. I really appreciate the time you're taking to explain these things to the listeners and to people watching, because, like you say, things get lost.
Oh, definitely they do.
Through generations.
Yeah.
And, so I think it's very important that we do hear from yourself, and I'm learning so much as we're going along as well. There's so much that we could carry on with, sir. It's been a wonderful.
General Choi had an amazing sense of humor. If you listen to him, a bit tongue in cheek, a bit dark in humor, but he makes you laugh with things he said.
Yeah.
So I remember going to a seminar and lining up to meet him before the seminar. It wasn't in the country. I think it was in Germany. It might have been in Cologne. And I'm lined up there. He's coming down, shaking hands with everybody there. I'm halfway down the line and in the back, to, you know, the second row, shaking hands with all these foreign people and that. And he looks up as he goes to put his hand through to shake hands with me. He goes, "Oh, Cutler," he said, "you going to give me trouble this seminar?" And I just smiled and said, "Only if you deserve it, sir. Ha, ha, ha." And we shook hands and carried on.
Yeah.
But I'm a troublemaker because of that.
Yeah.
They don't understand I'm going to ask him questions, you know. So yeah, but you know, there was no problem in it.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
No, I've heard that before. He did remember things. He remembered people very well.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I've spoken to so many people that had quite a close relationship with him.
Yeah, yeah.
And they all have a different story, but he seemed to know them very well on a very personal level.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there would be. I mean, probably some of the most important would be Michael Cormack, like.
Yeah.
You know, he was very close to the general in things, you know. But people like my generation, I assisted him a couple of times. There's a barrier. You know, I mean, I was there. I was appointed to share a suite with him, and it was. I said, "What do I do?" It was basically said, "You will be his servant." That was it. So it was just to make sure everything was right in the room. So you shared the room with him.
Yeah.
You answered the phone. Nobody rang in. It was before mobile phones. Nobody rang into the room without going through me. And you know, when I had a joining suite, it was I told the reception any phone calls to that room come through this through my room. You know, that was the important thing and things like that. But people, you know, so it was just you know, after the seminar, we went back to the room and General Choi would take his jacket off and throw it on the end of the bed. He'd take his trousers off and put his relaxing pajamas on. He'd sit on the bed and meditate for half an hour. That was it, just relax and sit there and he'd pick his suit up and fold it up and put it on the hanger and hang it in the cupboard. You know, nothing wrong in that. Not really a servant, but you're there to see that he has a comfortable life within the room. And I'd do the same with Grandmaster Rhee if I was with him.
Yeah.
Because that's you're there, you help them. You know, you're just showing that little bit of respect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I was witness to that a couple of times when I was
But a funny one when I was in Australia. I got to tell, they're coming in my head, these stories. So I went on a seminar when I was in Australia. I was due to go back to the UK, and then I heard the seminar was on. So I extended my ticket. You could change your ticket once for free. So I had a 6-month visa. So I stuck it to the end of the 6 months. I'm sticking out now because I'm going over my stay. And I went on the seminar. So they got it wrong. I was a 6 down, and I was actually down as a 6 cup. Didn't worry me, you know what people do. I went in, I had my tracksuit on, waiting for it to start. I'm up in the corner, doing my warming up, doing my stretching and things like that. Waiting for General Choi and that, and we were half an hour late. It was getting on, and people were getting frustrated. And somebody came in, and they went across to this other senior in the room. There was I think he was a 5th dan, maybe he might have been a 6th dan at the time, and said, "Oh, you've been asked to take the warmer." He said, "How can I take the warmer?" Senior to me is Paul Cutler over there. Oh, they didn't know. So I was asked to take the warm up. So I went. It might be a little bit long-winded story, but I went and said, "Okay, yeah, no problem." So I took my top off, and there I am in my dobot, and they see me belt and all that now, and line up, blah blah blah. And I said, "Look, I'm not authorised to conduct a seminar, so I'll just do some stretching. We'll just do a stretching program for the next hour and a half or something," which was the lunch break. And so we did stretching and movement and stuff like that, and that was it. And came to lunch, attention bow, out we go. Lunchtime, Tom McCullen's arrived. Now, Tom McCullen's already about 5 hours late. His flight was late. General Choi's flight was delayed. He was coming from Poland. I think Tom McCullen was coming from Austria, and there was delays throughout the place. So anyway, so Tom McCullen comes in, and people, before that, I'll go backwards a step. People going, "Oh, we want to do Taekwondo." What do you mean? You can't, you're not authorized. I've not been authorized. I've just been asked to do a warm-up. Blah, blah, blah. So then after lunch, Tom McCullen comes in, tension bow, do start. He said, "Can only apologize, General Choi isn't here." He said, "I'm not authorized to do any Taekwondo." He said, "But what I can do," because he said, "I know General Choi doesn't cover sparring on the seminar. Let's do some sparrings." So he did step sparring and some sparring drills. And that was it. And that's what people don't understand, that, you know, you don't do Taekwondo unless you're given the authority.
Yeah.
You can only do things that the instructor wouldn't do. So anyway, so eventually General Choi arrives. We've got about 10 minutes of the seminar to run. He didn't get out the car, but he called me over. He asked for me. Obviously, Tom McCullum had gone to see him, and he asked to see me. He said, "Oh, Cutler, you're here, blah blah blah," and we talk. He said, sort of, thanks for keeping it going while I'm here. You must come and have lunch with me. This is after the seminar, so it was about 4 in the afternoon. Come back to my hotel. I said, "Oh, thank you, sir." So it came about. He'd just come in from Poland. Now this is January, midsummer in Brisbane on the Sunshine Coast.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're about 42 degrees maybe. Yeah. He just come from Poland, midwinter, -30.
Yeah.
They opened the doors to the plane and he sat down. It just knocked him over. Just too much for his body to handle.
Yeah.
So he couldn't, so he stayed in the car. So we go, he goes off to the hotel. I get the ride to the hotel and go in. I'm dressed up and I go in, and Tom McCullum's there, we're chatting. General Choi says, "Oh, sit down at the table." He comes and sit down. So just sat across the table. And there's nothing really said. And Tom McCullum brings the food over. Just 2 plates, side serve plates, about this size. One with garlics that had been peeled.
Really? Yeah.
The other, green chilies that had been top and tailed. That's lunch.
Oh.
Nothing with it.
Really nothing.
I've gone. General says, eat. So then it came out that he would eat chilies. Chili is what he would eat. Garlic and chili for his health, to get him fired up. So not being right after coming from Poland, at that sort of time, he needed chilies and he needed garlic. So we had a plate to share. Oh, God.
Yeah.
So, no bread, nothing else, garlic and chili. It was amazing. It was amazing.
But you managed it, you got through them.
Oh yeah, I got through them. Yeah, don't know how I felt really after that. Anyway, the following weekend, it was over in Melbourne. He was doing another seminar, and I said, "Oh, I'd love to go on that. We'll go on that." So we jump on a plane and go across. Now we went the day before, and the day before was my birthday. We flew on my birthday, and I was 50 on that day. So we flew over. And, anyway, I've got to go into Melbourne. I said, "Oh, nice to see you, blah, blah, blah." I spoke to Tom McCullum. He said, "Oh, Paul, blah, blah, blah." And it came about, we mentioned about my birthday was yesterday, sort of thing. And that was it, chat. And then the seminar's going on. I could tell you loads of stories about the seminar. It was so funny, things that were happening with General Choi's sense of humor with people, people misunderstanding what he's saying. But anyway, we got through the seminar to finish, and we come up to Chuche. So he wants Chuche performed, and no one will get up. And I'm sitting, I ain't getting up and doing that. No way I'm getting up and doing that. I'm just sat in the thing. So he gets a second Dan up who does a version of something like Chuche, got it all mixed up and went back, and I got another one up who did it again. So, and he didn't then do any corrections on it because it wasn't right.
Yeah.
So he says, "Let me have a volunteer who knows Chuche." So I stood up and put my hands up, and he looked, he went, "You're too old." I just laughed. I said, "But I'd love to have a go, sir." And that was it. So I actually did a better version of Chuche than them, in my opinion. But he didn't do it move by move with me. He got someone else up afterwards, and he sort of nodded and laughed. We had a laugh about it, but yeah, "You're too old." So yeah, amazing stuff. But he got some up and then went step by step with it. But yeah, so
wow, special time, sir.
Yeah, amazing times. Yeah.
And so pleased you're able to recount them for us, and I'm sure people can imagine being there themselves, and what that must have been like.
What amazed me on a lot of seminars, and I see it all the time, on General Choi ones or Grandmaster Rhee ones, people talk to each other in the background. they stand at the side and talk, or they're sitting down and talking. I know you can see it on some of the videos of General Choi, but quite often they're interpreters that are sat with somebody who don't speak English.
Yeah.
They're the instructors there, but the people actually talking, and they miss that little snippet.
Absolutely.
Makes it important, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember a guy in Australia was on the seminar in Brisbane, and now already one day had gone, so only the second day was General Choi, and General Choi covered a little bit about sine wave and things like that. And this guy was now advertised himself as he did the seminars with General Choi, and he really knows and understands sine wave. That was amazing. I'd been on like 20 seminars and I still didn't understand it. You know, I was doing it and I felt what I was doing was right, but I still didn't understand the word sine wave.
Yeah.
You know, and if you take the word sine wave out of it, then it's fine.
Yeah.
Trying to create this downwards, upwards, backwards, forwards movement. Most people do backwards, forwards, whereas it's actually, you know, you got your ankle joint, your knee joint, your hip joint. They all got to work together. If you focus on your ankles, you go forwards and backwards. If you focus on your knees, you go up and down. So you mainly got to focus on the knees, and you'll go up and down, but slightly forwards and backwards. It's a natural motion.
Yeah.
You know, it's got to be natural. So sine wave has to be created that it's a natural flow of the energy of your body. And I think I can do that and explain that, not by word. On the floor I can demonstrate it.
Yeah.
You know? And I've got a lot of people now understanding more. They don't argue, you know. And I say, if you don't agree with me, tell me. I don't mind. If you challenge me, I can answer questions. You know, and I think that there's a lot of this still over-exaggerated movement, which people are calling sine wave.
Yeah.
I remember doing a seminar I did the UK, then I did Ireland, and from Ireland we went to Netherlands, somewhere up north in Netherlands, and we did the seminars here, and General Choi is moving, and we went into this one in Holland, and he's doing more or less the same thing, but it was completely different what he was doing with sine wave. And Sir, looks over. What? I said, sir, that's completely different to what you did in the UK and Ireland. He just looked at me and went, they're not ready for that.
Right.
They were at a different rate of development, a different place in development. So wherever he went, the majority of the people on the floor, he would work with. So as you got a better understanding, it moved on. And you got to think about it. You only saw him once a year or twice a year, if you were lucky, for a few hours. You needed more, so much more, to come to grips and come to terms with everything he explained about movement. I mean, General Choi talked about his theory of movement, not necessarily the theory of power. So people assume theory of power, but it's his movement, the way you move. The martial art movement is not necessarily the theory of power. That's part of it, you know, and it's understanding that way of movement. You know, we trained bare feet on a wooden floor. General Choi has always said, you know, that a sprung gym floor, wooden floor, is the best training area. You go on mats or you have shoes on. Okay, you can argue the shoes. I mean, shoes 99% of my life. Why do I want to train without shoes? But you with shoes, they're designed a certain way. Mats are designed for what? To cushion a blow, to stop you slipping. You wear the shoes to stop slipping. You work on a floor, you can slide your foot. So you can use your muscles correctly without the shoes to move. When you've got shoes, you can't develop that. When you've developed the movement, then you can use the shoes and move similarly, but not the same. You can move on the mats. If you develop the move, you can then move on the mats in a similar manner, but not the same. The hard floor you can use your core muscles to move. With shoes and that are designed to stop slip, you can't. With the mats, you can't. So the tendency is for people to lift their foot up and move it now. See a lot of this.
Yeah.
They step. So it, you know, and the theory of movement, the martial art movement of Taekwondo doesn't work with that.
Yeah.
Once you've developed it, you can.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing, it's that development. Now, sine wave, going backwards, because that's what I'm stopping for, the sine wave movement is the timing, the conditioning of your body to all come together at the critical point that you need that energy. So where do your hands start? Where do your hands need to finish? What point does your body need to be in at these given points to make it work?
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing. Now, people are over sine waving without understanding that. Because I see them drop their body and their arms are still moving all over the place. Or their arm stops moving and the body's moving. They're not an item. Your body has to be one.
Yeah.
The body is everything from the top of your hair to your toenail, to your fingernails, is all complete in the movement, not individually. General Choi said that from the toes to your hair is one movement.
Yeah.
Use your body to block. You know, there's videos in saying that, but people don't. They use their arm to block.
Yeah.
They use their body to block. Absorb the kick. Yes. Okay. Wrong thing. You know, you've got to use the energy of the body to do the movement.
Yeah.
And that's what's lacking. That's what's missing in a lot of people's movement. They could have it very quickly if they understood what to do.
Yeah.
And if they trained to do that. I was working with people at the weekend grading. I did someone to third dan, someone to second dan, and someone to sixth dan. And prior to it, they couldn't grade unless they trained online with me. And we would go through their patterns and analyze the movements, but is it high knife hand or middle knife hand? Is it forearm or knife hand? The book will tell you that. How do you do that movement is what I want to know.
Yeah.
How do you make a guarding block? Whether it's forearm or knife hand is irrelevant. Whether it's high or middle is irrelevant. How do you perform? What do you use? How do you create that movement? How do you get maximum power out of your body into that movement for it to work? That's what I'm looking at. So we're analyzing and going through things like that, which, you know, people who've been training a long time. I mean, a person that grades a sixth dan is actually senior to me.
Wow. That's a long time.
Goes way back. Yeah, I'll go way back. Yeah. You know, but she likes working with me because I explain things.
Yeah.
Norwegian, speaks very good English, but Norwegian and English don't gel, particularly when it's Korean in the middle.
Yeah.
So I explain the feelings and she understands so much more doing it and appreciates it. The guy going to third degree was the same. I explained positioning and timing to get there, go away and practice it. Now send me a video of you doing that movement. And then we talk again.
Yeah.
You know, and that was the build up to grading. So the grading was a formality for the other masters that joined the Zoom call to sit and watch, a bit of entertainment, if you like, you know, because they've more or less achieved what I've been trying to put into them. So hopefully that goes over, you know.
Yeah.
So there's an awful lot, I think, that is still misinterpreted, misunderstood.
Agreed. Yeah.
And it's from the root, you know. People are going to the wrong source for the information. They're going to the world champion. You know, you look, they put up, for instance, the North Korean girls pattern team doing whatever, Kwangae. Okay, wow, look at that pattern. Everybody copies their movement. But the movements are slightly adapted to suit 5 of them performing together.
Yeah.
The start positions, the finish positions. I mean, if you look at them, they wear the same haircut, the same color fingernails, you know, they're clones of each other.
That's right.
They move, you know, amazing performances. They really look good and there's nothing wrong, you know, with what they do. But the team pattern is not what to assess develop your pattern development with. And that's what's going to say. People are choosing that to learn their patterns.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, they're not going to the correct sources for it. I ain't half rambling on anyway.
So it's all relevant and very very glad you're saying these things, because I like any listeners and what people watching to pick up on it. Yeah, so, I mean, so I'd just like to say, sir, you know, you disclosed your age, 74. One thing that dawned on me when I went to a seminar and saw some what I'd call older people from Taekwondo, obviously General Choi, I met Grandmaster Park Jung-soo, and just what Taekwondo had done for them physically, mentally, in their older age, and obviously, so you're able to show me that as well, and it kind of inspires myself and students to continue, obviously, and see the benefits in that. I mean, so Taekwondo.
Park Jung-soo, just to interfere for a moment, he was an amazing sparrer. You know, his skill of movement was incredible. I remember going on a seminar with him, and he was demonstrating a movement and saying it, but nobody was doing it. And I was watching what he was doing. And football, do you know Stanley Matthews? You ever heard the name Stanley Matthews? He was renowned for leaning one way and running the other. He was completely logical the way he moved. Park Jung-soo was the sparrer like that. You'd think something was coming because of how he moved, but something else had come.
Right.
And it was a natural thing to him.
Yeah.
So you think he's going to kick and he'd punch you in the face. I never actually sparred with him, but I saw him spar with somebody once. And when he sparred in class, this was a story I was told, when he sparred in class, if you went to somebody, he would say, solar plexus, side kick. That's what he was going to drop you with.
Excellent.
And he would spar, bang, you go down.
Yeah.
He would pick the spot he's going to hit, and he would tell you the tool he was going to use, and you still couldn't block it, even though you know it was going to come.
Yeah.
You were prepared for it, you still couldn't stop it. You know, he had that ability. Amazing sparrer.
Yeah. Yes, so I heard that before.
Grandmaster Rhee was a terrific sparrer. Very hard, very hard. You wouldn't want, if you put the gloves on, suddenly become ill. You know, because
did you have that pleasure?
Non-contact and your non-contact are two different things.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, one of the things, just on the final thing, a post I put up on Facebook a year ago came up today as a reminder. You know,
I saw that.
Yeah, but I firmly believe that the grandmasters shouldn't be involved in politics. They should be all totally independent and accepted by all the groups, and be used to share their knowledge. Shouldn't be penalised. You know, people were penalised for wanting to train with me. If you go on that seminar with Paul Cutler, you will be punished. Was letters, was emails that were sent round. You train with Rhee Half seminar, you will be punished. You know, and that's going on, you know, in recent years. Right. Which I think is really sad. I've always said to all my students, go and train with who you like. Go and get that experience. Yeah. You know, see if you like what they do, bring it back. Let's share it. You know, that's it.
So that down to earthness, sir, that you had, which is obviously you used when you was on the seminars with General Choi. Do you think that came from your beginnings on the shop floor and just that kind of way of looking at the world?
I think it mainly came from, I mean, okay, I won't say it was when I was an instructor, when I was a master. As a master, I started getting it, or end of sixth dan, I think I started getting it because of working with Grandmaster Rhee quite close and working with General Choi on occasions, picking up how he talked to anybody if they wanted Taekwondo. You know, he was always shielded by the people around him. You shouldn't do it. And, you know, he had to have his free time. Yeah. So when seminar was over, that was it. If you want to talk to him, let's get the diary out and put a time. over this weekend where you can have half an hour with him. You know, people didn't always want that. They wanted to gate crash his room when he's sitting there with his feet up in his pajamas, you know, relaxing. He wants to always present himself properly.
Yeah.
You want a shirt and tie on and sit properly and talk and be a good host.
Yeah. You
know, you would have tea, or if it was in the evening, you'd have a drink. That's something people don't understand these days, you know. When I first went with General Choi for a meal, would you like a drink? Oh, yes, please, sir. I'll have a brown and mild or whatever. Oh, no, I'd like a drink. There you go. You drink what he's drinking.
Yeah.
You eat what he's eating. He's sharing his food and his drink.
Yeah.
The same with Grandmaster Rhee. When we go out for a meal together, you often choose your meals. But early days is, if he would invite you for a meal, he would pay. You didn't share.
Yeah.
He would buy the drink. He would give you the drink. He would give you the food. You didn't choose what you wanted.
Right.
That's the old culture.
The host, isn't it? That's the
yeah.
And
so if you went somewhere and General Choi said, we will have a drink. Oh, sorry, I don't drink alcohol. Poo. No. You'd take it, offer it up to your lips and put it down. Right. It's the gesture.
Custom. Yeah.
It isn't drink half a bottle of Johnny Walker with me. It's a gesture. I'm offering you a drink.
Yeah.
And that was something that I was asked to do. You know, when I was invited for a meal with General Choi at his house. The only 6 Dan at the time, all the others were masters. I've got the photos up on the thing on my page, that he invited me to go for a meal. I didn't know I was the only non-master there, and I was the only person on the Congress that was invited, which said an awful lot. But I was told, Grandmaster Rhee said to me, you know, you've been invited to come. Keep an eye on General Choi's glass and keep topping it up. That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
You know, so that was it. So I'd see his glass going down. I'd pick up his bottle. I didn't buy the drink, pick up his bottle tip. So
yeah.
Later on, during the meal, General Choi stands out of his chair. Just stands up, grabs his bottle, walks around, comes over to me, pours me a drink, goes back and sits down.
Wow.
So that was showing, because I was doing it, he was returning the gratitude. Yeah. Gratitude's the word. He was thankful, you know, he was showing the respect. Yeah. He was showing that is what we do. And, you know, and little things like that always stick in the mind. I mean, when we go for a meal, people say, the junior goes around and makes sure all the drinks are there, top them up, do it. That's just using someone as a slave. You know, that isn't what it's about. It's, let me pour you a drink. You know, we share the drinks together.
There's a kind of thoughtfulness behind it, isn't there?
It is, yeah. And that's what people don't appreciate, you know. Look, it's been great pleasure talking to you. And I'd love to do it again sometime. If you've got any.
All the best.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for having me. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.